April is Confederate Heritage Month, and yes, unfortunately, that is a real thing. And so, in order to remind neo Confederates and Lost Cause ass clowns what their heritage is, the Sons of Liberty is executing a daily series throughout this entire month, commemorating anniversary events and honoring Southerners who remained loyal to the United States. If you're just coming across our content, make sure to follow the Sons of Liberty, as we'll be upsetting neo-Confederates and Lost Cause bigots all month long. Andrew Johnson was an American politician born in Raleigh, North Carolina in 1808. Born in poverty and never attending school, he apprenticed as a tailor, moving around until settling in Tennessee. He served the public as an alderman, then mayor, then serving in both the Tennessee State Senate and House of Representatives. He then served in the U.S. House of Representatives, served as governor of Tennessee, then served in the U.S. Senate, where he was seated when Tennessee seceded and joined the Confederacy. Johnson was the only sitting senator who did not resign his seat upon learning of his state's secession. In 1862, President Abraham Lincoln appointed him as military governor of Tennessee after most of it had been retaken. In 1864, Johnson was a logical choice as running mate for Lincoln, who wished to send a message of national unity in his re-election campaign, and became vice president after a victorious election in 1864. Johnson was not by any means perfect, and his loyalty to the United States rather than his state should not be viewed through the proverbial lens of today. Johnson contributed to slavery, purchasing an enslaved black woman named Dolly in 1843. Dolly went on to have 3 children, also born slaves. Interestingly, all 3 slaves were of mixed ethnicity, and whilst it was never proven, it is highly suspected that Johnson fathered all 3. Johnson would free his slaves in 1863, and they all remained with Johnson as paid servants. In 1862, Johnson was appointed military governor of Tennessee by Lincoln. When Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation in January 1863, declaring freedom for all slaves in Confederate-held areas, he exempted Tennessee at Johnson's request. However, in 1864, as Tennessee's governor, Johnson freed Tennessee's enslaved population. As mentioned before, in order to sound a theme of unity in 1864, Lincoln ran under the banner of the National Union Party rather than that of the Republicans. Johnson, a war Democrat, was elected by the convention to run as Lincoln's vice president. When Lincoln was assassinated, Johnson was sworn into office as president. He was reportedly so drunk that he had to be held up by several men, each positioned so that it wasn't obvious that they were physically supporting Johnson. During the 19th century and parts of the 20th century, Johnson's presidency was widely maligned just about everywhere, except in the South, where he was popular for going easy on Southern rebels. Efforts to critically re-examine his presidency in the last decades of the 20th century into the 21st century have eased some of the blame, but Johnson continues to be ranked among the top 5 worst U.S. presidents, performing better than Donald Trump and James Buchanan, who was president just before Abe Lincoln. When viewed against the backdrop of a president being assassinated for winning the Civil War and freeing slaves and rebuilding a war-torn country, it is put forth that Johnson assumed office during one of the worst catastrophes in American history. Undeniably, Johnson was not a good president. He was the first president who was impeached for high crimes and misdemeanors owing to trying to fire Secretary of War Edwin Stanton, who was harsh on Confederate rebels. Johnson was hated by most of Congress and his general of the Army, Ulysses S. Grant. He resisted radical Republican policies aimed at securing the rights and well-being of the newly emancipated African Americans after having numerous opportunities to do so. He repeatedly pardoned traitor Confederates, and with each series of pardons, they became more and more generous. His Reconstruction policies enshrined Jim Crow laws and segregation. Southern states returned many of their old leaders and passed black codes to deprive the freedmen of many civil liberties, but congressional Republicans refused to seat legislatures from those states and advanced legislation to overrule the Southern actions. Johnson vetoed their bills, and Congress Republicans overrode him, setting a pattern for the remainder of his presidency. Johnson saw 15 of his vetoes overridden by Congress, more than any other president. So, whilst we honor this Southerner's loyalty to the Union, we also condemn his soft-handed handling of traitors who betrayed the United States, had a hand in killing U.S. soldiers, and even after the war continued to damage the citizenry of the United States. For the entire month of April, the Sons of Liberty is running a crowdfunding campaign on Indiegogo to create a year-long web series on Civil War history. We have over 80,000 subscribers on just YouTube alone, so if just 10% of them gave $5 each, we'd be well past our funding goal. Funding this campaign means that the Sons of Liberty admins get to take you on an exciting historical journey and, At the same time, help to educate or debunk, depending, various bits of Civil War history, myths, legends, and lies. Reminder that the Confederacy were traitors who betrayed the United States and tried to destroy the Union out of spite. Reminder that heritage, not hate, is lost cause horseshit. Reminder that the lost cause narrative is revisionist history bullshit. Reminder that the South seceded over slavery and economic factors tied to slavery. Also, another reminder that the Confederacy is a bunch of traitors who lost, got their asses kicked in a war that they started, and were forced to beg to be readmitted back into the Union. P.S. Your flag is a participation trophy. Die mad about it, fuckface. Hashtag not sorry, not sorry.
And now it's time for the throw punch!